Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
It's dolls, dolls, and more dolls. The horror genre is an ever-twisting blade that goes in deep when a good and original concept is copied, replicated, and beaten over the head until it's nothing more than a watered-down caricature. They say imitation is the biggest form of flattery, but are we so sure about that? Today I have an interesting horror movie ripoff between two evil entities covered in rubber that cherish their higher gods, massacring anyone and everyone in their path. One that spawned countless sequels, TV shows, a cemented horror legacy, and worldwide notoriety.
Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back.
While the other, I may have glanced at on the racks of my local Blockbuster back in the day. Does 1991's Dolly Dearest, directed by Maria Elise, go above and beyond compared to Don Mancini's bloodthirsty good guy doll, Chucky, in Child's Play? Let's take a deep dive in this installment of Horror Movie Ripoff.
Dolly says we're gonna like it here.
Now, in order for a film to have an effective execution about killer dolls, they need significant backstories for the believability to set sail. While watching Dolly Dearest, you couldn't help but realize the similarities or influence it gained from its older brother in Child's Play. Child's Play tells the tale of the Lakeshore Strangler, Charles Lee Ray, on the run from the cops in downtown Chicago. Charles is gunned down by a detective, and in a last-ditch effort, transfers his soul to a good guy doll, due to his practices in voodoo in the heart of Damballa. Charles' soul manifests itself in the doll, which is then taken in by a mother, Karen, for her son Andy, who wanted the hot-selling doll more than anything.
A good guy!
And you can guess what happens next, as strange occurrences and bodies start piling up, only pointing the cops to Andy Barclay. Unfortunately, Andy is trying to convince his older companions that Chucky, the freckle-faced good guy doll, is behind it all. Chucky's goal is to transfer his soul back into a human host before he becomes stuck in his current plastic body forever, which causes Andy and Karen to fight for their lives in the process. In Dolly Dearest, a businessman by the name of Elliot Wade moves his family to Mexico, where they take ownership of the abandoned Dolly Dearest factory. Elliot's younger daughter, Jessica, takes a liking to one of the porcelain dolls on the assembly line. Unbeknownst to her, the doll is alive. Dolly serves as a vessel under the spirit of Sanzia, which means Satan on Earth. The Dolly Dearest factory is located not too far away from a fenced-off tomb, where Sanzia was located, and when an archaeologist opened the tomb prior, the spirit got out and latched itself onto the dolls inside the factory. When Jessica takes a serious liking to Dolly, Dolly starts to eliminate innocent bystanders in her path, while also possessing her in the process, so that she becomes a pawn for Sanzia's own malevolence.
Don't I look like Dolly now?
Now, you can't help but notice that both films are front and center, establishing their killers as rubberized dolls, who stalk and prey on their victims. Chucky from Child's Play debuted first, creating a historic legacy to his name, with further installments. And just like Child's Play, Dolly Dearest also has that evil, maniacal doll at the helm, hiding in the darkness only to pounce at a moment's notice. Both display the same formulas in their film, being their doll form in public, which throws off any traces of their true nature. But when they show their real form, they display the stuff of nightmares, both possessing that extreme creep factor and a malicious look. They're both cunning and ruthlessly calculating, making them formidable foes to those around them. And at a time when technology wasn't up to where it is now, they walked and moved due to the same puppeteering. But in all honesty, it made them much more terrifying in the films. Funnily enough, American stunt actor Ed Gale was hired for both Child's Play and Dolly Dearest when it came to doing the human motions of the dolls during production. Dolly Dearest pulled right out of the Child's Play playbook when the film decided it needed to keep the stakes high. Both films used their child protagonists as pawns to the doll's diabolical plans. In Child's Play, Andy is set up by Chucky after the bodies start falling, literally. Andy, being a kid, is only looking for companionship in his good guy doll. At a time when most children need friends, why not turn to a valuable substitute before hitting grade school? It's easy to manipulate and coerce a child, as they don't yet know right from wrong. And this is where both Child's Play and Dolly Dearest materialize. Chucky uses Andy to get him to several destinations around Chicago in pursuit of revenge, while also maintaining Andy's trust, so he can eventually transfer his soul back into a human. In Dolly Dearest, Dolly befriends Jessica, possessing and manipulating her. Jessica becomes very aggressive and violent throughout the film until her older brother Jimmy takes a shotgun and blasts Dolly through a door, unlatching the possession from Jessica. The child devil spirit Sanzia eventually wants to possess all children on the planet, which is quite a big task to fill. Unfortunately, Jessica is patient zero to Dolly and brings her along for this twisted terror ride. Jessica, however, speaks good Mayan, let's be clear about that. Hats off for being a bilingual kid when you need to be.
What?
There's nothing like a mother's love, and they're both done similar here. In both Child's Play and Dolly Dearest, you can't help but realize that both Karen Barclay and Marilyn Wade are practically the same person. They both become worried about their children, and when shit hits the proverbial fan, they go out of their way to do some detective work of their own, visiting shady areas to get clues, or dig for truths when no one else will. Interestingly enough, both women display more ferocity and quick wit, as opposed to their male counterparts. In Dolly Dearest, Elliot Wade is an absolute clueless father, who doesn't see any pattern happening when people are dropping dead. And Detective Norris brushes Karen off throughout Child's Play. Norris claims she is crazy, until he comes face to face with Chucky while driving in one of the best scenes in horror cinema. Both women stay dedicated to their mission of finding out the real reason behind their child's actions, and not listening to the naysayers. Both Karen and Marilyn display that inner hero that any real mother would possess when it came to protecting their loved ones. You do not screw around with a mother's bear cub in both of these films. Both mothers display inner strength and intimidation when they need to get down to it. Even though Child's Play and Dolly Dearest have different settings, they're totally the same. Some of the scenes are blatantly replicating one another, and it's mostly during the murder scenes. When the housemaid, Camilla, and the factory watchman meet their fate, they're stalked and teased, while Dolly remains in the shadows, springing the traps. You get the clever misdirects, until you reach the climax of these deaths in great horror fashion. However, they do play out like deja vu to the deaths from Child's Play. That of Maggie, the shrink tending to Andy, Dr. Death, and Eddie, Charles Lee Ray's partner in crime. Even the car scene with Detective Norris, who does manage to escape with a few bumps and bruises. Hell, even Chucky and Dolly get blasted away in the same fashion from firearms. Norris shooting Chucky in his overturned vehicle, or Jimmy's shotgun blasting Dolly through a door. You can tell Dolly Dearest used Child's Play's execution in those scenes very closely. And the cherry on top is that Dolly and Chucky both reach the climax of their films, and are either destroyed or severely maimed due to fire. Chucky gets locked in the fireplace, while Andy sets the match.
This is the end, friend.
Or Dolly and her porcelain pals are sent sky high by Elliot and Carl, courtesy of some dynamite. Look, I can't bash Dolly Dearest, because in the end it's a guilty pleasure, but it fails so hard in trying to be better than Child's Play, or even place itself beside it. And let me reinforce that imitation is the purest form of flattery. It's just a shame that Dolly brought that phrase down a few notches. Let's be honest, Child's Play is one of the best horror films ever put to celluloid. It stands among the all-time horror greats like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. If a Mount Rushmore was created for horror films, those four icons would be sitting atop it, and maybe throw in a Ghostface for good measure. We can appreciate that Dolly used Child's Play as an influence, and it tends to deviate itself a bit from the better iteration of the killer doll trope. It's decent horror movie schlock, and I'm glad it exists, even if it doesn't warrant repeat viewings as opposed to other horror films. The fact that Child's Play has generated a ton of sequels, a popular television show with multiple seasons, and tons of merchandise and memorabilia tells us who the victor really is. Now, if we could throw Chucky, Dolly, Megan, Annabelle, and the dummy from Dead Silence in a battle royale, now that would be quite an interesting battle. Keep your eyes peeled for the next one, folks.
You thought?